Paris, year 1925. The country had just come out of a world war, and the world was turned upside down. At that time, there was a man sitting reading the newspaper like anyone else, but his eye caught a small piece of news no one would pay attention to. The news said that the French government was suffering from the cost of maintaining the Eiffel Tower, and there was suggestions to remove it because it had become a burden. Anyone who read this news would turn the page, except Victor Lustig. Victor saw this news as prey and saw himself as the hunter. He gathered the 5 biggest scrap dealers in France in a very luxurious hotel and sat with them in his capacity as a high-ranking government official. With extreme calm and terrifying charisma, he convinced them that the state had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower as scrap in secret because it feared public outrage, and that he chose them specifically because of their reputation. The man was selling the symbol of France while he did not own it at all. And not only that, he managed to discover which of the dealers was the greediest, focused on him, and made him pay a bribe so the deal would go to him. Victor took the check, cashed it, and fled to Vienna. The scrap dealers, out of sheer embarrassment, could not report to the police. What Victor did, Robert Greene did not call theft. He called it art. The art of playing on the strings of the human psyche.
Welcome, gentlemen. The story we told is just an example of the art of seduction. As I said before, I am not glorifying evil nor teaching you bad intentions. Today we will talk about a book considered one of the most dangerous books, The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. This book must be handled with caution because it is not just a book that gives advice. It is classified as one of the most dangerous psychological books that explains the art of control and shows you the keys that manipulate people's minds. The story we told at the beginning is to tell you that seduction is not a look or a love story between 2 people. Seduction is the art of controlling minds and fabricating influence, and how to make a person, whether your boss, your client, or your friend, hand you their mind, even willingly. This is a psychological war that begins the moment you see the map of the person in front of you.
The art of hunting the victim. Here, Robert Greene takes us into a completely forbidden zone in human interactions. He reveals a terrifying truth. Every person you deal with, no matter how strong, dominant, or even aggressive, actually has a psychological void inside him that he himself cannot fill. Inside him is a scared child or a person searching for importance. The dangerous secret the book explains is that control is not through muscles or loud voices. Real control begins when you are the only person who sees the point of hunger in the person in front of you and knows exactly what he is thirsty for: appreciation, safety, confidence, or someone to carry the burden of decision-making. The moment you touch that string and start feeding it, the person in front of you becomes like a ring on your finger, not because he is weak, but because he found the psychological drug with you. You became the only person who makes him feel self-sufficient or fills what he lacks. This is the peak of mental seduction and cunning. Mastering this art is summarized in hidden guidance and brilliance. Planting the idea in the victim's mind and making the victim serve your idea while fully convinced of it. That is exactly what the legendary con man Victor Lustig did in the Eiffel Tower story. He targeted their psychological hunger to be the most successful and the first. He planted inside them that the deal was secret and dangerous and required sharp intelligence. Instead of asking them for a bribe, he created circumstances that made them fight to offer it, each thinking he was the wolf of the market who seized the opportunity of a lifetime, while in reality they were just tools executing Victor's plan, puppets whose strings he pulled simply because he saw their point of hunger. Now that you know the whole game revolves around the psychological void, I will tell you how to fill it so you become the controlling genius. And cunning. The ideal lover. There is a character in the book that Robert Greene calls the ideal lover. The ideal lover does not necessarily have to be handsome or rich. He simply masters the game of reading suppressed dreams. The danger of the ideal lover is that he does not ask anything from you. He only gives. He is like a magical mirror that shows you yourself in the version you always wanted to be. Every person in this world has an ideal scenario for his life, a buried scenario of things he wished he had done or lived. If you are a person who has lived a routine, boring life, the ideal lover appears to you as the bold, reckless one, making you feel you lived the youth you lost just by being with him. If you are overly emotional and people have exploited you, he appears as the tough, smart one you wished you were, so no one would step on you. The ideal lover does one thing only. He lives that role on your behalf. He places you in a parallel reality more beautiful than the one you live in. Here, we must recall the story of Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychology. Freud used this mental seduction in a brilliant way. People did not go to him to be cured of illness. They went searching for meaning, to find someone who explained their inner secrets and made them feel that their strange thoughts and dreams were not madness or weakness, but the unique fingerprint of their makeup. Freud did not promise healing. He promised understanding. He did not say, "You will recover." He said, "I will understand you." And understanding is more dangerous than treatment. The same rule applies in business. The client does not really buy a product. He buys a new version of himself. He sees in you the image he wants to see in himself or his company. You are not selling him a product. You are selling him a fulfilled promise that makes him feel all the flaws of the past will be fixed with your presence. This is the true power and absolute cunning of the ideal lover. He completely forgets himself and sees the world entirely through your eyes. He knows exactly the incomplete perfection you wished to achieve and could not, and designs that role for you alone, to the point that he makes you forget your true self and melt into his presence, because you see in him the most beautiful and complete version of yourself. To understand who you are prey to and who in your life quenches that thirst, look at whom you are attached to and why, and be sure that the peak of seduction is not making someone love you. True seduction is making that person love his new self when he is with you. When that happens, you are no longer just a person. You become the raw material from which his new being is made. The art of manufacturing addiction. Greene said a sentence only those living among beasts understand. Anything guaranteed is destined for humiliation. The moment people feel you are guaranteed, stable, and always present in their lives, they start to see you as an acquired right. Your presence becomes like air, important but unnoticed. No one remembers you or feels your value unless you are cut off.
That is why, if you want to always take your value, you must hold the balance of pleasure and pain in your hands. Saturation kills desire, and hunger ignites the fire of need. Drown them in your safety and care until they relax and surrender, and at the peak of that stillness, disappear. Pull the rug of comfort suddenly and make them taste coldness and calculated deprivation. This plan wakes them up and destroys their psychological defenses, making their mind revolve around one question: where did he go? What did I lose? At that moment, you transform from an available person into a prize they must fight to reach. You are not cruel here. You are reminding them of your real value. Because humans, and this is a slightly sick truth, hoard those who seek their approval and sanctify those who hurt them. This is exactly the style of the elusive coquette mentioned by Greene, embodied by Napoleon Bonaparte's first wife. Napoleon, who commanded armies and shook empires, became like a small child in front of her because she mastered calculated coldness and the engineering of relationships, approaching and withdrawing, giving a dose and pulling it away, keeping him hungry until the strongest military leader of his era wrote her letters begging for her approval.
The lesson here is harsh but real. Be like medicine. Its bitterness is part of its effect. Your absence is a crisis. Train those around you that your approval is a prize they must work to reach, and that your anger is costly. Control has a price, and the price is stepping on your heart a little and becoming the engine that moves them, sometimes with reward, sometimes with threat, until you become the addiction with no cure. The art of absolute certainty. This method will not make people love you, and that rarely happens anyway, because love was never the real goal. Love and emotion are tools we use. They come and go. What is more dangerous than people loving you is becoming a direction they believe in and follow. When you give a person what he lacks at the moment of his confusion, he will not just love you. He will see you as a compass and may very well follow you. People are full of doubt, not because they are weak, but because the inner whisper of every human always fears the future and creates a halo of terror around the unknown. That is why the majority always looks for someone with absolute certainty to follow and consider a leader. This art leads you to sell people salvation from hesitation. No mind can argue with a mind that sees everything as inevitable destiny. Your power, wisdom, and reaching complete certainty are not easy. You will lose a lot on the way. But reaching that certainty and stability means you have possessed all the tools of control. Here, Robert Greene mentions a brilliant personality type, one of the most dangerous of the 9 types explained in the book, the charismatic. Charisma here does not mean being stylish or funny. Charisma, according to Greene, is inner energy, your ability to appear as someone with absolute certainty at a time when everyone else is confused and full of doubt. He tells the story of an ordinary man who embodied this personality, Rasputin, a simple Russian peasant. His appearance was ordinary, his clothes shabby, his smell unpleasant. Logically, such a person could never enter a palace of rule, yet he not only entered, he gained enormous political influence and direct influence over Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra, rulers of the Russian Empire, to the point that he interfered in appointing and dismissing ministers and controlling the state, until people considered him the actual ruler of the empire. Rasputin was a simple, mysterious peasant who claimed divine power to heal the sick. People saw something strange and incomprehensible in his eyes, a mix of holiness and evil. He had a powerful gaze and deep voice, and his confidence reached even the soldiers. One day, he entered the Empress Alexandra when she was devastated over her son, the crown prince, who suffered from hemophilia. Doctors and nobles stood helpless, unable to reach a cure, and every attempt made him worse. Rasputin was the only one who entered with calm and confidence, looked her in the eyes, and told her he alone held the secret to healing her son, a secret all doctors had failed to achieve. The empress was collapsing, and the child was terrified. Fear raised his blood pressure, and panic caused faster bleeding. That was the doctor's failure. Rasputin's strength was not knowledge, but something stronger, absolute calm and singular certainty. When he entered the room, he did something simple no one else could do. He used his psychological magic to expel anxiety from the room. The calm he transmitted lowered the child's blood pressure, allowing his weak clotting to work, and the bleeding stopped instantly. The empress did not see what he actually did. She saw a miracle beyond science. Regardless of medical reality, The power was in her absolute belief, which transferred to Rasputin and increased his confidence. People smell weakness and hesitation. If you want to be the one in control, train yourself to be a source of certainty. When you speak, speak in terms of facts, not probabilities. Look into the eyes of the person in front of you with strength that feels like you are standing on solid ground and your steps are drawn before he even thinks of moving. Certainty is entering any place as if you memorized its soul and read the faces before they blink. Your words must be the last words spoken, your steps the first among all, and your eyes say what others' tongues fear to utter. When you pass among people, pass as if the ground itself opens a path for you. Rasputin did not enchant anyone. He simply understood something most people do not see. The moment he trusted himself, others treated him as a mirror of their comfort. Here, Greene means something deeper than certainty, the secret door that lets you enter people's minds without knocking. Whoever owns his certainty owns the scene, and whoever owns the scene directs the fate of everyone around him. The world does not show mercy to the shaky. It adorns itself for the strong and leans toward those who know who they are and where they are going.
The art of creating an aura of comfort and trust. Greene explains here a very important point. Seduction does not always mean igniting desire. Sometimes it means extinguishing anxiety. People outside are fighting, competing, and judging each other in everything. That is why the person who creates a space with no judgment, pressure, or criticism becomes, in everyone's eyes, the only safe refuge. This art simply tells you, be the well in the desert. The person in front of you feels afraid and inadequate. With your intelligence, you make him feel like the most complete human being in the world. He feels the world is unjust. You become the ear that listens and affirms without debate. A brilliant philosophy says, when you make the person in front of you relax, he's forced to remove his armor. When the armor is removed, he becomes exposed. While you smile and nod, you can plant any idea in his subconscious. This may be misunderstood as kindness, but it is a cunning psychological and military tactic, disarming the opponent without a single bullet, anesthetizing logic so emotion takes the wheel. The master of this art, the professional who excels at this game, Greene calls him the magician. Here he does not mean a magician who pulls rabbits from a hat. He means a personality that listens more than it speaks, making you pour out everything inside you and giving you the feeling that he understands you deeper than you understand yourself. The magician avoids all forms of argument because argument awakens defenses, and he wants you asleep. He always praises your weaknesses. If you are stubborn, he calls you principled. If you are chaotic, he calls you an artist. He turns your flaws into strengths, making you feel a peace you never felt with anyone else. The magician plays on a deep need inside you, appreciation and approval. He sells you the illusion you want to believe about yourself. That is why his magic is irresistible.
Creating an aura of comfort is essentially the art of social hypnosis. You build a wall of safety around the person. Isolate him from the noise and cruelty of the world until he sees the outside world as a savage jungle and sees you as the only safe place. The moment he guarantees your safety, that safety turns into a noose around his neck. True magic is not obedience. Magic creates need. When you are the only source to satisfy that need, he will not just love your presence, he will breathe you. Remember always, humans do not search for truth. They search for what makes them feel they are right. Be the comfort, and you will be the master.